TT with cocomarTech.
Hello world, cocomarTech here, and Xiaomi is doing a great job manufacturing smartphones. You have the Redmi Note series, the Black Shark phones, and their Mi series phones. But I think their most popular and also I think their best price to performance ratio phones is their Poco phones. They offer a lot to consumers while having relatively affordable prices, and this includes the Poco M3 Pro 5G. Let's do a quick unboxing of the phone before we start our review. Again, their box is their signature bright yellow box. Inside you have some paperworks, Poco stickers, a transparent silicone case with a protective cover for the phone's USB port, a USB A to C cable, and a 22.5 watts fast charger brick. The Poco M3 Pro 5G is a greatly built phone overall, internally and externally. It's nicely designed, although you can really see a resemblance of the camera layout to Samsung's S21 lineup. Well, everyone's copying everyone, I guess, but at least it looks good. You have the Poco branding at the back and the 5G feature imprinted on the lower left part. It's made of glossy plastic, although it looks like it's made of glass. The edges of the back are also curved, so holding the phone is easy with one hand. It has a 3.5mm headphone jack port and an IR blaster at the top of the phone, which are rare features for a phone in 2021, so I appreciate it. The volume rocker and the power button, which is also the fingerprint scanner at the right portion of the phone. The fingerprint scanner is fast and reliable, by the way. Same goes for its face unlock, which is way less secure. A hybrid SIM slot on the left side where you can expand the memory up to 512GB by a micro SD card, and a microphone input, USB Type-C port, and a bottom-firing speaker at the bottom. What I don't like about the build quality is that the back is a fingerprint magnet, so you might want to slap a case on it, but everything else is great for me. The screen display is a 6.5. The screen display is a 6.5 inch 90Hz IPS LCD screen, 400 to 500 nits of brightness, 1080 by 2400 pixels, 20 by 9 aspect ratio, 405 pixels per inch, and Corning Gorilla Glass 3. It's a good LCD display, blacks are deep enough, viewing angles are good, and it's a fluid 90Hz high refresh rate. I just don't like that it's not a very bright display. A lot of phones I have tested so far for the same price range are brighter than this phone, but overall it's still a good display. Bezels are also thin, except of course for the bottom bezel. What I think is a great feature of the phone is the power of the Poco M3 Pro 5G. I just hate saying the long name of this phone. Poco M3 Pro 5G. Poco M3 Pro 5G. Anyway, the Poco M3 Pro 5G is powered by MediaTek Dimensity 700 5G chipset and the Mali G57 for the GPU. Either 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal storage, or 6GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage. This Dimensity 700 5G is actually a powerful octa-core processor. Although it's not a Snapdragon processor, which is more popular to most consumers, this chipset performs far better than the Snapdragon 662, which is the processor used by its predecessor, the Poco M3. It has a 58% higher GPU frequency, 65% better in Antutu 8 bench scores, 10% higher CPU clock speed, better instruction set architecture, supports 23% higher memory bandwidth, and it has a smaller transistor size of 7nm. And if you're going to compare the MediaTek Dimensity 700 5G versus the Qualcomm Snapdragon 732G, the Dimensity 700 performs with a 6.49% faster CPU speed, 1.5x faster download speed, 40% faster uploads, and 267 MHz higher RAM speed. It's really a great chipset. Everything's gonna be fast with this phone. Basic tasks, opening apps, downloading, uploading, the mobile data speed because it's 5G enabled depending on your area, and gaming. Speaking of gaming, I had no troubles with the gaming test for this phone. I didn't experience lags in frame drops playing Mobile Legends with ultra graphic settings with 60 frames per second settings, even with 5v5 clashes. Call of Duty has the same experience, very smooth with settings set to a maximum of medium graphic quality, high frame rate settings, and realistic graphic style. For Ragnarok Next Gen, I set the settings to extremely high graphic settings with 60 FPS and every other settings set to high. I had a smooth and satisfying experience even when farming a lot of monsters present in the game. Lastly, for Genshin Impact, the most optimal graphic settings is at low, since anything heavier than that will be extremely laggy and slow. It's a heavy game, but at least it's really playable at low graphic settings. For the benchmark scores, it scored a single core of 515 for Geekbench 5 and a score of 1677 for the multi-core. For a perspective, it scored somehow similar scores to the Redmi Note 10 5G with 522 single-core points and a multi-core score of 1673. Battery performance is great for the Poco M3 Pro 5G. It has a big 5000 mAh battery and you'll definitely last a day with this phone. I'm getting around 5.5 to 6 hours of screen on time. It's gonna depend on how you use your phone, but those are my average screen on times, which includes gaming tests. Playing a 15-minute of Mobile Legends only eats 5% of battery, which is good too. Charging speed is good enough. The charger brick included is a 22.5 watts charger brick, but the phone can only use up to 18 watts charging, which is weird. I'm getting around 29 to 31% of battery with 30 minutes of charging. Nothing spectacular, but that's enough for most people. The Poco M3 Pro 5G has a bottom-firing speaker. It can get loud and it's decent in quality. Here's a sample sound test for its speaker. Running MIUI 12 on top of Android 11, the software experience is gonna be familiar for casual Poco users. It's customizable with a lot of pre-installed apps and bloatwares. App icons are colorful and punchy. Out of the box, the phone's home screen is busy and maybe a little messy with lots of folders and shortcuts. The phone doesn't have an always-on feature because it's using an LCD display. You can use an app drawer as an option, which I personally prefer. The notification shade can be set like the iOS implementation to split the control center. The task switcher is MIUI's usual task switcher, which is a vertical layout. The Poco M3 Pro 5G can do split screen, but it doesn't support floating windows. There are a lot of themes and wallpapers to choose from and additional privacy options. Now, when sharing stuff like photos and videos, you have the option to remove location information and or other metadata, and MIUI 12 has a dark mode. Lastly, let's talk about the cameras. The Poco M3 Pro 5G has 3 rear lenses, a 48 megapixel f1.8 main lens, a 2 megapixel f2.4 macro lens, and a 2 megapixel f2.4 depth sensor. For taking selfies, it has an 8 megapixel 2.0 lens. For taking photos, the main lens captures great overall images with great dynamic range with the right amount of saturation and contrast. They're detailed and sharp, and the camera UI of the phone is easy to use. It's just unfortunate that the phone doesn't have an ultra-wide or a telephoto lens, so the camera system is not that flexible. The macro lens is not that good. It's just 2 megapixels, so it's not as detailed to other phones' macro lenses. The depth sensor does a great job for the portrait mode as it produces a relatively clean subject background separation, although the subject appears to be funny looking overall. The selfie camera produces more or less accurate skin tones. I'd prefer it over orangey skin tones of other phones. It's detailed and reliable. The night mode produces amazing for really dark scenarios as it lights up the place and cleans the noises, although it over sharpens a little and has higher contrast than the main lens, but still it does a great job overall. The Poco M3 Pro 5G is currently priced at 8,990 for the 464GB variant and 11,990 pesos for the 128GB variant. It comes in Power Black, Color Blue, and the Poco Yellow. I really like the Poco M3 Pro much more than its predecessor, the Poco M3. It's much faster and more polished in my opinion. It's a great phone overall, stylish design, Nice build quality, good battery performance, 5G capable, powerful and snappy. Although the cameras are not that flexible, it still has a nice main lens. It offers more than just the 5G feature. You'll definitely enjoy this one, and it's one of the best phones under 10,000 pesos in 2021. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. My name is cocomarTech. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Keep safe, guys.